Hello, I'm Cole Powell, award-winning singer-songwriter from Random Mind Records. If you enjoy what you hear, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and click the bell for notifications. Also, if you'd like the ability to help us choose what content to react to on the channel, as well as early access to reaction videos, consider supporting us on Patreon for $1 a month. The link's in the description. We also have $2 and $3 tiers that would give you access to exclusive content such as full-length album reactions, as well as full-length music-related television episode reactions. Alright, so today we're going to be taking a look at another best of, worst of article. We did Paul McCartney, the quote-unquote worst Paul McCartney Beatles songs. I really enjoyed doing that reaction. It took us a long time to get on YouTube, but it seemed to go really well. So I want to do one here. I was actually thinking about doing my own top 10 greatest John Fogerty solo songs list, but I just haven't done it because it takes a lot of time to put something like that together. And I just so happened to see this article from 2 days ago, 10 best John Fogerty songs of all time. This is by Edward Tomlin from the website The Singer's Room. So I thought instead of doing my own top 10 list right now, I could take a look at this one and give my opinion on where I think these songs would fall in my own top 10 list. So we're just going to dive right in here. And before we get started, let me say this. For those of you who are new to the channel, or who may have missed me saying this in other videos, John Fogerty is my favorite artist of all time, hands down, bar none. I prefer his CCR work to his solo work, but even still on all of his albums, CCR and solo. Love the guy, my favorite artist, but there are some songs I don't particularly care for, and if there's something I think that I need to say that may be a little bit negative, a little critical of John, I'm not going to pull any punches here. So just be aware of that going in. It still doesn't mean I don't think the guy's phenomenal. I usually, when I do top 10 lists, when I've done them in the past on like my website or when I was writing for Southern Senses, I usually go in a countdown format from 10 to 1. This author has gone from 1 to 10, so I'm just going to start out at number 1 like the author started and go from there. All right, so first up we have Almost Saturday Night at number 1. It is a great song. I probably would have that in the top 10. I would not have it at number 1. We'll get to that in a minute. But it is a great song. It's a throwback. It's got a 50s feel. This was originally released on his 1975 self-titled album that's generally called the Shep album because it's got his dog Shep on the cover with him. And I actually prefer the live Premonition version from 1998. And one of the reasons, I feel like there was some production choices on the original studio cut in the 70s that didn't really suit the song, and Fogerty obviously felt the same way too because he changed that when he did it live for the Premonition record. On the original cut, John is singing, I think it's like 3-part harmony through the entire song, and maybe one line where it's just one vocal. I think it may just be 3-part through the entire thing, and it doesn't really work. There needs to be some kind of separation where it's just one voice singing solo to give some breathing room there. And that's exactly what John does on the 1998 live version. He's got the Waters backing him up. The Waters are a fantastic group of singers. And they're doing multi-part harmony through most of the song, but then there's a couple of spots in the song. I'm not sure whether you consider it a chorus or maybe a repeated bridge, but there's a section there where John is just singing the lead by himself, and the Waters drop back and do some background stuff like bop bop, and it works perfectly. It's an improvement on the studio cut. The version that the author has chosen here is the original studio cut, so let's take a listen. We'll listen about 30 seconds of this. Great intro. Classic Fogerty intro.
Why
yeah, great song, great hook, really upbeat. It has a 50s throwback feel to it, like I said. Again, for me, the vocals throughout with that three multi-part harmony there doesn't really work, and I think it may have also something to do with the tone of his voice. He's really focusing on the harsher tone that he uses, which works well for some of his grittier stuff, like the swamp rock stuff. This, I think, lends itself more to a smooth vocal, which he has later when he's doing it live in the 90s. So, but yeah, really good song. I do think this is worthy for a top 10 pick, just not at the #1 spot. So let's move on. At number 2, Center Field. This, I think, bar none, is the #1 John Fogerty solo song of all time. For those who watch the channel regularly, you know I'm not a huge 80s music fan, so I do have some quibbles, personal, subjective quibbles, with the overall sound of the record and really everything from the Center Field album, because it's just steeped in the 80s sound. The sonic profile of it is very 80s, with some synth drums and the way the guitars sound, and that's not really my cup of tea, but objectively, the song is great. It is definitely his most well-known solo song. It's played in MLB stadiums across the country every year. People who have no idea who John Fogerty is or who CCR is know at least the chorus of this song and probably think it's called Put Me In, Coach. It's just an iconic song, and for me, the fact that it's had that longevity, that should be a criteria in a best of list. For me, that's one of the criteria I usually use. And yeah, it's just a fantastic song. Great hook, upbeat, positive, really gets the crowd going. And another great intro. Almost Saturday Night also had a great classic Fogerty intro. Center Field is probably his best solo song intro. Let's take a listen to it. Hand claps. Synth hand claps. Great catchy intro. I'll pause it right there and skip ahead a little bit. Get the chorus. Yeah, great sing-along hook there. Perfect. It's no wonder that this was a huge song for him and why it's survived into the pop culture consciousness for so long. All right, at number 3, we got Old Man Down the Road. Again, this is a little too low. I'd probably put this at number 2, Center Field #1, this at number 2. Again, because it's an 80s song, I do have some personal aversion to some of the sounds, but that's irrelevant. Objectively, what he did with this song, he took his patented swamp rock sound from 1969 and adapted it to a new generation. And it's just absolutely perfect. I believe it is his only top 10. I think this was a top 10 Billboard hit. And I think was #1 on the Billboard rock charts, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody may correct me. That's been a long time since I looked all that information up. But great stuff. He had a great intro. He's got the swampy mystique from his CCR days. The whole hoodoo stuff is in there, and the video that we've got here with it's following the guitar cable all around the country. I guess that's what video we're fixing to watch here. A great video, absolutely perfect for the era. Yeah, this is definitely an excellent choice, although again I would have it one notch higher. Let's listen to that first 30 seconds there, and maybe fast forward a little bit to the chorus too. There we go. Such a simple video, but really good. Let's do those vocals. And vocally, this is really a transitional point for Fogerty. He's still got that Credence howl, but he's gone smoother in his tone, a little bit more higher pitch sounding. Not higher pitch, but the sound is higher. He has a higher sound in his voice, whereas previously he had kind of a low feel, even though he was singing really high. He had a low gravelly tone, and this is kind of shifted here. But again, really good song, great vocal performance. I don't think he could have taken his style and adapted it for a new time any better than he did on this song. Great choice, although again, I would have had it a little higher. Okay, number 4, Rockin' All Over the World. Again, another excellent choice. Once again, I would have this one probably at number 3, behind Centerfield and Old Man Down the Road. And I see here, it looks like this is going to be the 2005 Long Road Home live cut, which is actually, I think, it's certainly my least favorite version of the song. And I hesitate to use the term worst because that implies that it's bad. It's not bad. It's just out of the 3 main versions, the studio cut from his 1975 album, the Premonition live cut, and this cut, it's the least of the 3. And the reason that the original studio cut is so good is because it's peak Fogerty. It sounds just like a CCR track. He actually wrote the song during his CCR days, and I feel like if he had released it with CCR in 71, 72, it would have been a smash hit. Might have gotten them their number 1. By the time he released it 75, the rock music landscape had really changed, and it just didn't catch on, although other people have covered it and had hits for them. Status Quo had a hit version of it, but it's a great song. It's really fun. Again, great intro. Fogerty is excellent at intros. That's one of the things that set CCR apart from everybody else. And the great hook, the Rockin' All Over the World motif, you can really get into it, really gets the crowd rocking. And I've heard him do this live in concert. I was there in the audience. Really great track. So let's listen to this 2005 live version. Okay, yeah, and I still, it's been a long time since I've listened to that cut, and I still am of the opinion that that's the least of the 3. It's played, and that's one quibble I have with some of Fogerty's live cuts of his classic songs. He plays them a little bit faster, and sometimes a lot faster than their original version, and it's a little too fast for me. And his voice has already got to that point where his voice sounds super high set. He doesn't have a lot of the gravel. Is smoother, and for me, his 1975 vocals, where he's still got the rasp and the gravel, and it sounds like he's really low, even though he's not, that is a better cut. But still, the song is fantastic. Definitely belongs on the list, although, again, I would have it up another number. Okay, so, number 5, we have Eye of the Zombie. All right. I'm really shocked this was on the list, because that album is, I would say, from what I've seen, universally hated. I used to be on the John Fogerty forums. I was on there for 2 or 3 years whenever I was a teenager in college. Nobody liked this album. Nobody liked this song. I know it was a giant flop, critically panned. Fogerty never plays any songs from this album except for Change of the Weather, which I feel like is the only song from this album that would even be a contender for top 10. And he also remade that on the Blue Ridge Rangers Rides Again album. It's a really good version. But yeah, I'm really curious. Let's see what the author says his reason is for this one, because a haunting and politically charged rock song released in 1986, dark atmospheric sound, raspy vocals delivering lyrics that touch on themes of corruption, power, and apathy in modern society. Okay, so it seems like he's really honing in. He's picking it because of the thematic material. Showcases Fogerty's musical evolution, his ability to tackle complex subjects with his songwriting, cementing his place as a rock icon. For me, that entire album was a giant misstep. He had had such a success with the 80s sound in center field, like I mentioned before, and I think he went a little too overboard. And in this particular case, it's not just me and my aversion to the 80s, because nobody in the 80s liked it either. So, but we're going to take a listen here, because it's been a long time since I listened to this track. This is not on one of my favorite playlists. Yes, it sounds like he's going full-on Michael Jackson here. And that just doesn't really suit Fogerty's style. I do like the riff. I don't remember digging the riff this much. Yeah, I'm gonna cut it right there. It's about what I remember. Other than that, I didn't remember the guitar sounding that good. I'll say that. But basically, he's going for the whole mystique, the swampy mystique that I've already mentioned earlier. On the hoodoo and his themes he's already visited before. And as the author said here, he is used as metaphor for political stuff, which is fine, but it just doesn't. There are songs that are similar in theme and style that are more well produced and better written. I don't think this belongs anywhere in the top 10. All right, number 6, Rock and Roll Girls. Okay, this is another one. It's another 80s song. I'm not huge on this song just because it is steeped in that era, but I do agree it needs to be on the list. It was one of his biggest hits in the 80s, one of his biggest solo hits of all time. It still plays well today. Yeah, I definitely think this would be on the list. It's probably sitting about right at number 6 here. Might knock it down a little bit, but yeah, I think this is a good choice. Good intro, some throwback intro, really. There's those 80s synth drums.
Sometimes I think life is just a rodeo.
Very, very catchy.
The trick is to ride, make it to the bell.
Yeah, I think that that does belong on the list, even though it's not one of my personal favorites. Definitely a top 10 there. All right, Jambalaya on the Bayou. Yes, this is definitely a top 10 track right here. It is his cover of the Hank Williams Sr. classic. I love Hank Williams Sr. I love this song. And Fogerty just does this phenomenal country rock version of it, and this is right after CCR broke up. That's released in 73. He still has his howling CCR vocals. It is just, he's on fire on this song. It has one of my favorite instrumental breaks of any Fogerty song. I love it. Yeah, it's basically it's Hank Williams Sr. as performed by John Fogerty, and that's two great artists and a great song. You can't go wrong. Let's take a listen. Oh, yeah.
Goodbye, Joe. You gotta go. Oh, my, oh.
Peak Fogerty vocals right here. Yeah, great vocal take right there. Whenever he comes back in and says, well, Jambalaya. Really, really good stuff. Although I was just an octave lower than him because Fogerty's voice set way higher than mine is. Yeah, great stuff. I think it's about right at number 7 there. I definitely would have this on the top 10 list. All right, number 8, Premonition. Okay, this is a surprising choice. Really dig Premonition. It's not very well known. It's from the Premonition album, which was a live album recorded during the Blue Moon Swamp tour. And there was actually, whenever I was on the John Fogerty forums, I remember there were some folks on there saying that there was accusation that it wasn't completely a live album, that there was some studio overdubs done, and that's why it was never released as a live album. It was just called Premonition, and none of the tracks had live after their name. I don't know whether that's true or not. That's just what was being said at the time. And this would have been actually several years after the album was released. But anyway, really great song. It's got, again, a great intro. It kind of plays into the dark voodoo, hoodoo mystique that we talked about before, the swampy mystique, but also leans a little bit into the country southern rock thing that Fogerty was into at the time with the Blue Moon Swamp record. I really like it. I'm not sure if it should be in the top 10. Right off, I'm going to say no, because I'm thinking of other songs that I would say deserve to be in the top 10 over that I have not seen on the list yet. So let's take a listen. They cut. Okay. He actually says an introduction there to it. They cut that. King Aeronaut is amazing.
I can't shake it, no matter how I try. You can't touch it, you just know the earth is gonna shake and the wind is gonna blow. Well, that's alright. This premonition is killing me, but that's alright. I must be crazy, I must be seeing fire.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like that one. Again, I'm not sure if that's top 10 material, but it is a really good song. And I can see why somebody would put that on the top 10 list. All right, number 9. Okay, number 9. Okay, these last two, I'm going to take them together because I'm going to have the same. I don't think either one of them should be on this list. And I have the same criticism for both of them. And this may be a controversial opinion, particularly among hardcore Fogerty fans, but remember, I'm also a hardcore Fogerty fan. The last two here, number 9 and 10. 9 is Deja Vu All Over Again, and number 10 is Weeping in the Promised Land. My biggest criticism of latter-day Fogerty, of Elder Fogerty, on his political songs in the modern era, he is so heavy-handed and so on the nose that the political songs that he writes now lack the timelessness that the political songs he wrote with CCR had. And I'll give you a prime example. Fortunate Son. Fortunate Son was talking about the draft. The draft has not been active in my lifetime, yet I can listen to that song and I can understand the overarching theme, even if I didn't know the specifics of it. And it still resonates today, and it still plays well on the radio 50 years on. And that's true with most of Fogerty's political songs from that era. Deja Vu All Over Again, it's a critique of the Iraq War, and he's critiquing it by basically saying it's the same as the Vietnam War. And I don't think anybody really listening to this, even today, would necessarily get what he's talking about or could apply it in other ways. And I just feel like if you use more subtlety, more nuance like he did back in the CCR day, I think it would be a stronger song. But Weeping in the Promised Land, I had the same quibbles with it. It was released in 2021, and it was about the insane year that was 2020, and he starts out, it's a little bit more metaphorical, a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more applicable across the board, where you can get a theme out of it, whether you know the politics or the history, and then as the song goes on, it gets more heavy-handed. And particularly for this list, something that's only been out for 2 years in a catalog that's 50 years old, it's going to be really hard for me to put something that new on a top 10 list, because we really haven't had time to digest it and see if it still stands and resonates years after it was released. Also, as far as musically on Deja Vu All Over Again, he kind of just recycled the music from Who Stopped the Rain with a little bit of Have You Ever Seen the Rain thrown in, and he already kind of did that with I Saw It on TV from the Center Field record in the 80s. So it's just a little bit of a rehash musically here. And we'll listen to this, and we'll also listen to Weeping in the Promised Land. I do like the production. I do like the instrumentation.
Did you hear him talking about it on the radio? Did you try to read the writing on the wall?
Alright, I'm going to fast forward, see if we can get that chorus.
Deja vu all over again.
See, this sounds just like Have You Ever Seen the Rain right there when it comes in after that first chorus. Even that bass line sounds like Have You Ever Seen the Rain. But anyway, I do like the concept of the deja vu all over again. And you can apply it to a degree with history kind of repeating itself in other ways. And the line is, it's a Yogi Berra line, it's deja vu all over again. But it's just not quite there. So, yeah, I would definitely not have this in the top 10. Although I will say, of all of his solo songs, this chorus probably comes into my head more than any other. So there's something to be said for that. All right, Weeping in the Promised Land. The piano is great. The gospel feel of this song is great. It's very reminiscent of my favorite song of all time, as long as I can see the light.
Weeping in the promised land. Satan's dark angels are falling from the sky. Weeping in the promised land.
And I do like the religious imagery, and again, here he's being more metaphorical, not quite as heavy-handed, but as the song goes on, it gets more and more on the nose, and I think that undercuts the theme of the song. And again, this is my opinion, and also remember, huge Fogerty fan, I don't know if in 10 years anybody's really going to know this song. Not that it was a giant mainstream hit or anything when it came out, but I even just wonder how many people that heard this song when it came out are going to remember it 10 years on. So, for me, it's not a bad list. This whole article is not a bad list. There's really only 3 that I would not have on this list at all. 1 is a maybe. So, 6, I think, were really good to be on this top 10 list, although I would have them in different spots. So, as far as the other 3, maybe 4 spots, one of the things that bothers me most probably about this list is that there were no tracks from Blue Moon Swamp, which might be his best album objectively. It won Rock Album of the Year in 1998, the Grammys. Such a strong record. It's country rock, and I think Fogerty really found his elder sound for that, differentiating CCR from his later career with that record, and I really wish he would have kept up with that consistently and just done country rock records from that point out. But it was a really, really solid album. I'm thinking Enjoy My Life from that record should be a contender for this, which was just covered by Chris Stapleton for a major hit. Southern Streamline from that album is really good. Rambunctious Boy, Blue Boy, even Hot Rod Heart, which I'm not a huge fan of that song, but I could see the argument being made for it to be on this list. Look back at the Shep album and 75 album. The Wall was a great swamp rock track. It was the B-side of Rockin' All Over the World. Great track. Sounds just like a Creedence Swamper. That would have been another one. I think they actually wrote that one too while he was still with CCR. It would have been another great one to have released it 71, 72 while he was still with the group. The Zombie, I mentioned Changing the Weather. It's the only really great track off of there. That could be a contender. On the Deja Vu album, Sugar Sugar, I think is one of his best songs that he's done this century for sure. Even I Will Walk With You, which is not necessarily a well-known song, but it's a really nice, sweet song about a father and daughter, light folk acoustic affair. Even the Revival album, which I wasn't a huge fan of overall, Broken Down Cowboy from that record, another great song, great songwriting, should have been a contender. And also he had 2 new tracks on his duet album, Wrote a Song for Everyone. Mystic Highway, I think it's one of the best songs he's done. I think that would be a definite for this list. And it's kind of a, if you read his biography, Fortunate Son's autobiography, Fortunate Son, he talks about that kind of being a religious and philosophical anthem for him, like a manifesto for him, the Mystic Highway. And it's really good. It's country rock. It's kind of reminiscent. It's got a breakdown there. It's kind of reminiscent of Doobie Brothers' Black Water. Really great track. Also, the other one on that record, Train of Fools, It's kind of got a little bit of that dark swamp stuff, and when you start singing about a train, Fogerty has trains in several songs. Really good stuff. It's not quite as good as Mystic Highway, but it could be a contender for this top 10 list. So yeah, not a terrible list, but I did have some disagreements, and some of the tracks I did not feel should have been on there over other tracks from other records. So let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll see you next time.